Quickly, before the video starts, I streamed this live over at twitch.tv/ballisticren, where I also play games. I stream weekdays at 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern, so come stop by and say hi. I can't wait to see you over there. Now on with the video. I tried doing this casual geographic, the predator that we still can't figure out. But yeah, last time it was muted accidentally, so I'm like, I was already through a good chunk of it. I'm like, I'll just save it for another time. We didn't get that far into it. So without further ado, Casual Geographic, the predator we still can't figure out. Let's hear it. A creature as mysterious as it is majestic with
Plenty of people are
reptilian.
terrified of
Okay.
the ocean, and arguably no other
I mean, let me see. Could probably grind a little.
Plenty of people.
Actually, can I? Just serious, it's majestic, reptilian head, and the powerful feline grace of a panther. Mahogany, Hampton University. All right,
Plenty of people are terrified of the
let's
ocean,
hear it.
and arguably no other animal embodies thalassophobia more than the predator time seemingly left behind. Most people will
Okay.
never see one alive, yet they remain one of the most nightmarish and uncanny, but also complicated and least understood apex predators on the planet. In fact, the first time you ever heard of a leopard seal, it was
Okay,
probably
leopard seal,
giving
yeah.
Happy Feet hell, or the pebble and the penguin.
Right.
In which case, make sure those doctor appointments are booked. You're getting
Yeah, leopard seals, very violent predator.
up there, or maybe
Clearly.
it was. If you or a loved one was a victim of that jump scare, you may be entitled to financial compensation. Not for me though. The penguin prowls.
Didn't get to me. Yeah, I think I've been built like a tolerance to jump scares. Also, jump scares are kind of a lazy way of getting a horror scare reaction. But sure.
Is incredibly feared for an animal we
I feel like you could like adjust yourself to getting used to them.
know that much about. Hey, what's a
especially if it's expected.
Fast food? Popeyes. But there's a whole other side to the assault sausage.
What was that?
One that just might bring
Popeyes. Okay, that's a bird. It looks like that's like a beak. I mean, intuition says penguin. Yeah, that looks like a flipper right there. But yeah, I don't get the Popeyes joke with that. Maybe just bird in general.
But there's a whole other side to the assault sausage.
I get a little more sense if it was a chicken, but sure.
Long enough. This video isn't to make you fear or hold hate, but understand and even appreciate the alpha seal, not for just what it is, but how and why. And all I ask is that y'all hear me out.
All right.
There is no why as to why people find leopard seals optically disturbing. Few other animals pass the eye test for being that terrifying. The leopard seal looks like a mammalian mosasaur.
I mean, it only looks scary if you look at his teeth in real detail.
Predator with a perma-smirk. And if you think I'm exaggerating, you haven't seen or better yet heard what happens when one hauls out near humans.
That is barely audible to me. Like, I mean, it's not barely audible, but it's like not audible in the way you'd think it would be. Like, it's just like a deep thump. That's actually kind of quiet in this video, in a way. I don't know how to describe it. Okay, that's a little more loud.
Hear it in your chest. Another thing is, people often suffer from a lack of scale with sea animals.
I'm sure it would feel more intimidating if I was there and could actually like hear it in person.
They don't know how huge tuna are, how big dolphins get, and that leopard seals can grow to 12 feet long and weigh over 1,200 pounds. Trust me,
that is heavy.
Down the line. Chances are, you've never looked a leopard seal in the mouth, because then you'd have to be surgically removed from your therapist's couch. Those teeth are built like that for a reason we'll get into soon, but this internal mugshot may be coming to a beach near you. Abolish any idea that an air-breathing barracuda is confined to Antarctica, as they've been found.
I mean, well, yeah, I guess not technically. Like, penguins, I don't think are technically confined to Antarctica. Like, depending on the species especially, they could go up to like mid-South America. Sure, like even like certain, like even Antarctic species, so to speak, can go to like Australia or southern tip of Argentina. depending on like the weather conditions and all that.
as far as Antarctica, New Zealand, South Africa, Argentina, the what the Falklands, and more. There's at least one leopard seal aware of platypus, and that's insane to me. So is the
That
idea that this
is
apex pinniped
that is
could be
absurd.
pulling up to a pier by.
You find a leopard seal from Antarctica on a beach in South Australia. Yeah, and think it's dead. Ooh, but yeah, like that's the thing. Australia and South America, especially like Argentina, really aren't that far away from Antarctica. So it's not surprising. Like at least with uh like Argentina, if you found like even emperor penguin walking around the beach, it yeah, I wouldn't be shocked because it's really not that far.
You. That would raise the hairs on Caillou. And even with many roles as the op to a penguin protagonist, people have spoken on the horror of sea leopards for
I
centuries.
mean, a sea leopard would probably be like the only reason you wouldn't find a penguin that far from Antarctica, or well, like an emperor penguin. Species that evolved in South America and Australia, obviously you'd find there. But again, they'd be pretty regionalized by predators.
Going back to the early 1900s, explorer Ernest Shackleton wrote about an Antarctica expedition
1874.
where at one point, one of his men was chased across the ice by an aggressive, believed to be 12-foot leopard seal. The man thought it was in the
Yeah.
clear when the massive seal dove back into the water. But then the sea leopard tracked him by following his shadow under the ice and ambushing and nearly snatching him at the next gap in the ice. Thomas
Ooh.
Wardley's likely would have been a statistic if one of the crew
How long can they hold their breaths for? Like because like that's assume because I feel like there'd be a large amount of ice. Maybe if it's like ice sheets and not like solid ice, like glacial ice, like just floating ice sheets or something like that.
hadn't shot the seal before it could reach him. In 1985, explorer Gareth Wood was walking across a thin ice layer when a Jurassic jump scare
Not
broke out
good.
of the ice, clamping his claws on
Exactly.
his leg and nearly dragging him into the water, and he was only saved by his mates kicking at the seal's head with boot crampons. That's
Hmm.
what separates sea leopards from a lot of other predators. The vast majority of sharks will ignore you, but whether out of curiosity or something else, leopard seals will boldly swim.
I mean, even when sharks do attack, it's most likely out of curiosity, So, like, most animal attacks could probably be like described as one of two things: defensive or curiosity. Like a moose will more likely than not do a more defensive thing, but yeah, like a shark will be might nibble at you out of curiosity, not trying to like maim you. And that's the thing. Like most shark attacks are like 1, 2 bites. Like they're not actually actively trying to harm you, so to speak. Uh, but I mean, still dangerous because it's a shark. So
Right into your space. It's the closest you can get to an encounter with a murder mermaid. Murder maid. It was right there.
it
Most
really
times they
was.
genuinely seem curious.
It really was right there, murder maid. I think he was trying to say murder mermaid, then was like Wait, hold on. There's a better word for this.
And like they're investigating your presence. But other times they do the
If I
thing where
remember, I'll start calling sea lions that, seals, whatever,
things that led to researchers equipping inflatable boats
whichever ones I need to.
guards because of how often a 12-foot vibe check would bite through it. You only get away with it as an
Yeah.
apex predator, and present tense plesiosaur is absolutely apex. They will eat
Wait, did he say
those
present tense plesiosaur?
predator, and present tense plesiosaur is
Yep.
absolutely apex.
He did.
They will eat anything. Those freakish teeth are actually for catching krill and having trident-shaped teeth that still turn around in the water. Krill
Kind of ironic that well, I guess I don't stick to krill specifically, but that their teeth are designed to eat something so small, yet they do eat things much larger than what their teeth are primarily designed for.
nearly 50% of their diet. Of course, the leopard seals list has much more on it, including often
Yeah.
other seals like fur seals and even their closest cousin, the crab eater. Obviously, they'll eat fish, and in New Zealand,
Right.
that can include sharks. Leopard seals also grieve squid. One was caught with
Smaller
a sea
sharks, I'm
snake,
sure.
and there's even one case of a leopard seal attempting to take out a minke whale. Even the ocean star
What's a what? A what whale? Minky? I'm curious what that is.
predator, the orca, rarely resorts to hunting an aquatic velociraptor because this is not
Well, orcas are incredibly smart and can, assess risk management and all that. So they're probably like, Yeah, we could take him on, but do we really want to take the risk of injury and maybe even death? Like, of course, the seal is not on a predatory mode. It's more defensive, but it still can do serious damage even as a defender.
The average seal. But if you know this seal, you know the most famous victims of leopard seals are penguins. Even though penguins aren't even the biggest part of their diet, leopard seals are a lot more.
That seal did not look too enthused to even chase that penguin, and that penguin was immediately like, "Yeah, nah, I'm out." Like he was just laying there, and even when he noticed the penguin, he was just like, "Huh?" And the penguin had such generational trauma. It didn't matter. He was still just like immediately not giving the seal time to even react. It's just like, I see it, I'm out.
Calculated than
Crazy.
most think, and will cancel
That
some
is that, and that is why penguins are the most famous prey because they just see a leopard seal and they're like, yeah, nah, I'm out.
right at the ice's edge where they know is the penguin's entry point, which pretty much makes them a mammalian crocodile. With penguins, they'll either ambush them from below, or with a
Mm.
top speed of 25 miles per hour, they'll get into a police chase with an unlucky penguin. The leopard seal abuses this matchup so bad that not only will they surplus skill and murk more penguins than they eat, they'll eventually make a game out of it. Leopard seals have been
Mm.
seen chasing down penguins.
Again, another sign of some real high intelligence when you like are so not worried about your food that you play actively will play with prey because you know that you will just be able to body anything that you can. Like that's the thing. Like a lion or a cheetah especially, doesn't play with its food because it's too much of a hassle to get. But like hyper intelligent animals like orcas are like, yeah, we know we're going to be able to eat readily. Like we're just that dominant of predators. So we could just like we don't even need to hunt for food. You know, we could surplus hunt and just play with dead animals.
Penguins into
And it seems like leopard seals might be in the same boat with that.
exhaustion and seemingly toying with the bird. They'll traumatize the penguin within an inch of its life and then just shove off like it was a sick joke.
Just a
But it's when
prank.
leopard seals aren't.
That's why I'm saying, like, yeah, because like when penguins don't even make up that much of a your proportion of diet, like half the time you encounter them, you won't even want to eat them. You go, but it's like they're just so generationally traumatized that it's like, well, I could at least fuck with him. Maybe I'll kill him and just play with his dead corpse out of just morbid fun. But like, if I'm just gonna play with him alive, I can, and he'll be scared and tense because he thinks just automatically that I'm going to eat him. That's like that's some serious like predatory play right there.
Playing that things get R-rated, and it all goes back to those teeth. Those teeth could maul the grizzlies and give them a demon's headshot, but they lack the shearing teeth carnivores need to slice prey, and that's why you see them body birds by slamming and
Yeah.
suplexing them against.
Yeah, because those are very particularly designed teeth for a very particular role. So like, yeah, because those aren't like traditional. I think it's molars that are usually used for like the grinding in mammals. And yeah, you don't. None of those were traditional molars used for grinding. Because they're used to filter out krill. Uh, so yeah, it's not really designed for grinding. So yeah, you get into the same situation as reptiles, which don't have specialized teeth like that, and having to like find creative ways to split up to like break apart your food.
The water. A leopard seal will thrash a penguin until it genuinely gets degloved, and the penguin skinned and flayed every possible way gets eaten. So with all
Yeah,
that, Stevie Wonder could see how the king seal of the South got its bad rep, but wild sea leopards do have one thing that not even killer whales do,
that's a great joke. Even Stevie Wonder could see it. Yeah.
and that's a human body. There's only one case in recorded human history of a leopard seal killing a person, but it's also one of the most brutal animal attack stories I've ever shared on this channel, so for obvious reasons, viewer discretion is advised.
I mean, viewer discretion is always advised when talking about graphic things. So,
Kirsty Brown was a 28-year-old marine biologist for the British Antarctic Survey, and on July 22, 2003,
oh,
she and a buddy were snorkeling near Rothera Research Station. They were
okay, over
studying
20 years ago. So this was like the only situation. Okay.
the impact of iceberg scouring on the environment when the leopard seal studying Kirsty violently made an impact on her. At this point, nobody had ever lost their life to a sea leopard, but there were documented instances of aggression, and as a rule, nobody was allowed in the
I like the
water
Halo
when a
theme.
leopard seal was spotted. The problem was, no one saw this leopard seal until Kirsty screamed and disappeared, only to resurface with her head in the seal's jaws. From there, the normally sized seal would drag her deep underwater, release her long enough to just almost resurface, just to
Okay.
grab
Oh,
her.
dude, she was alive still with her head in his mouth. That's got to be miserable.
Drown her again,
Jesus.
all while mauling her with bone-crushing bites. Eventually, Kirsty and the seal disappeared, and the last time her dive buddy saw her alive, she was 20 feet underwater, desperately fighting to break free, while the apex seal held her by a fin. Eventually, the seal resurfaced, over a half-mile from where they were last seen, and after bashing the predator in the head with a shovel, the rescue crew fended the seal off and finally pulled Kirsty into the boat. Tragically, as you can tell, despite several
Uh, okay. Now my question is, did she die from her injuries, drowning? Because obviously, humans aren't made to be in water. But yeah, in a tragedy that is some tradition or Moses Chris Brown okay, I don't want to read too much of this because that's not what I'm here for. But and he might get into why, like, the cause of death. But
CPR
yeah.
attempts, Kirsty Brown would be pronounced dead right there. Kirsty's body was recovered with over 40 bite wounds, and her dive computer revealed something arguably worse. During the 10 minutes of hell, the leopard seal had dragged Kirsty to a maximum depth of 70 meters. That's 230 feet.
Yeah.
But personally, the most disturbing part was Kirsty was already an exceptionally small
Yeah.
human at 5'1", 120 pounds, and eyewitnesses
I
said
put
this was an
120.
exceptionally massive seal, estimated to have been 4.5
I feel
meters.
like that's, like, proportionally speaking, that's pretty heavy for the height, especially for female. But yeah.
That's nearly 15 feet long and well over 1,300 pounds, which I genuinely don't want to believe, even if it was based off the seal's size relative to the boat. Because not only would that mean a 5-foot woman was mauled by one of the largest leopard seals ever seen, but this is what that size disparity would have looked like.
Man, that is insane. Jesus.
There's no f***ing way.
Mother
Since
of
no one ever asked the leopard seal why, the most popular theory is that her size, black dry suit, and fins caused the colossal carnivore to clock Kirsty as a penguin or fur seal. And in all her struggling, flailing, and failing to get away, all Kirsty managed was to act like prey. Which sounds wild victim blaming, and I swear I'm not. There's a reason there's no jokes in this section. This was genuinely one of the worst animal-related deaths I've read about. Imagine being mauled by a bear, but also while being waterboarded. In fact, let's get even more descriptive. Kirsty Brown spent the last
that's
10
terrible.
minutes of her life fighting an animal nearly triple her length and 10 times her weight, while being severely mauled to the head and being brought tortuously close to the surface before being pulled again over 200 feet into a freezing abyss. Not only could the violent pressure changes cause a burst eardrum or even an embolism, her compromised wetsuit would have introduced Antarctic ice-chilled water directly to her
Yeah,
skin.
so it's not even necessarily the injuries that could have done her in. I'm not sure if they know what killed her, if they're like, oh, it's possible that this injury did it, but she could have drowned or suffered from, like, frost related, cold related, like, succumbed, I guess, to the cold before that potentially fatal bite, or what the case was. Like, if they're ever like, oh yeah, this was exactly what did her in, or if they're like, there were just too many factors to definitively pick one. Drowning would be actually pretty easy because you just look for water in the lungs, unless those got punctured by biting too. But yeah.
Respectful way, I really hope she blacked out or went into shock, because that is a nightmare Final Destination couldn't dream up. Kirsty Brown would have an island posthumously named after her, and her death led to more safety measures and protocols being implemented. But there was another consequence of
Hopefully bright wetsuits that won't look like penguins.
a horrific demise. The much more strict regulations now meant many of the biologists trying to learn more about the seals were now forbidden from entering the water to study them, something many like dive guide Kelvin Murray would call an overreaction. Suddenly, an animal we barely knew much about was now basically impossible to learn more about. It was a lot
Right.
like the stingray. Stingrays are rarely aggressive, and less than 5 people in human history have lost their life to one in Australia. But because one of them was Steve Irwin, you had an entire generation ready to punch out an aquatic placemat. Even though the circumstances of his death were insanely bad luck, and Khaki
Right.
Jesus would have passed
About to touch a stingray. I should punch it though. Just to let it know. See if everyone's still kid. Got shooters out there. Here. What?
twice if he saw the stingray hate. Only one person has ever died to a sea leopard. It's just that the attack was so brutal that, in the pro-penguin media, meant a blubber assault weapon got
Pro penguin
demonized to hell.
media.
To be fair, with the things I said they'll do to penguins, other seals, and even humans, how could you not call this Ice Cube mammalian missile crisis a sea demon? I wouldn't blame you
I
for
mean, obviously, the chances of getting attacked by one, especially in a fatal way, is rare. Like you can easily get up to next to them and film them
being afraid, but at least give the other
relatively.
side of the leopard seal.
If you can learn to forgive you. Over a year ago, I threatened you out of anger over the death of a lost one, a death that you were not responsible for. Today, I've returned to make things right, to end the cycle of violence. Is what Steve would have wanted. I'm sorry, and I love you, water pancake. Okay.
A chance. I was not lying when I said a pool full of sharks will ignore you, but a leopard seal will get right up in your
Yeah.
face and conduct an investigation.
I feel like humans are like in an interesting way, like even animals that don't really understand the concept of human retaliation, that haven't had to deal with that, still understand. Like animals that could easily take on a human understand, like, we're not really going to. They don't look interesting to us, like particularly. So they just leave us alone.
Your
And
personal
it might say they look interesting to us. I'm talking about from their perspective, not from ours.
space. Kirsty might have been a tragic exception because aggressive or predatory encounters with humans normally happened at the ice's edge, aka the leopard seal's favorite ambush spot. But almost every
Ah,
time a leopard seal has approached a human
which
already,
makes sense because you're interfering with their, resources, their food management, all that, whatever. So yeah, it makes sense why they'd be aggressive because territory and food are two very obvious reasons to be aggressive in the wild.
in the water, they're doing it from a place of curiosity. That is really weird for a predator. Like, for all their bad PR, bears usually
Hold on, I just want to make sure you what you
ambush
said.
spot. But almost every time a leopard seal has approached a human already in the water, they're doing it from a place of curiosity. That is really weird for a predator. Like, for all their bad PR, bears usually avoid people. An
Right.
experiment found that even the top predators in Africa hightail it whenever they hear human. But
I mean, we co-evolved alongside them, so they might have picked up. So by this point, they might understand that yeah, humans aren't good for their continued health. Because if they attack a human, and the rest of the tribe will come and blah 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 blah. So like a cheetah's like, I ain't dealing with that. A hyena's like, no, not me. Lion's like, yeah, I got my own problems to deal with. The last thing I need is for a hairless ape with a personal grudge hunting me down.
Giga seal will study us the same way we do them. That's weird. One seal made it even weirder. In 2006, photographer Paul Nicklin took a trip to Antarctica to hopefully find the steroid seal. Funny thing is, leopard seals are hard to find. They're hard for you to find. To them, you're easy. It wasn't
Okay.
long until Paul had
Yeah.
a giant females are bigger by the way, leopard seal circling his zodiac. And it was at this moment he ignored every primitive instinct and ancestral alarm and got in the water and braced himself. The seal with a head bigger than a grizzly bear's made a beeline towards Paul. And right when Paul feared the worst and held up his camera as a feeble defense, the she leopard stopped and just sized him up. Science says if you're able to stay calm and hold your ground, a leopard seal will go from possibly aggressive to curious, and she even got close enough to study her reflection in his camera. It's like her internal monologue was saying, wait, you're not afraid. Why aren't you afraid? Why are you? Then she got bored and swam away.
Right.
But then came back with a live penguin, which she released in front of Paul. Obviously, Paul didn't take the offer, so the predator got another penguin, and then another one. And for the next 4 days,
Trying to make. You see, that's the thing. Like humans aren't interested in, and of course, this is just animalistic nature. But humans aren't immediately interested in food, right? So it's at least humans who have ready access to it. So, but like in nature, food is the ultimate struggle. So food is like the ultimate. Hey, I hand you off this food. so now we're friends kind of thing, because it's like this is like you're sharing resources, showing that you want to have a friendly relationship. But to us, it's like I don't need that. This now, of course, there's also morality. For example, we consider penguins cute and fluffy and cuddly and all that, so we wouldn't take them, we wouldn't accept them regardless. But just from a natural perspective, that's obviously what's going on in this relationship. It doesn't matter what she brings if it's living, uh, especially something like a penguin, it won't be accepted. Now, of course, the seal doesn't understand that, but that's basically what's going on.
Same species that had mauled a woman to death would now be waiting to greet Paul whenever he entered the water in an attempt to feed him. I want y'all to really understand what was happening here. This she leopard was going out and tiring penguins and bringing them to Paul. And when Paul didn't eat, she'd bring increasingly lower HP penguins. She'd bring beat up, barely alive penguins, half-eaten penguins. At one point, Paul had 5 past tense penguins floating around his head. Paul would even swear that the leopard seals seemed
Leopard seals
genuinely
often blow bubbles to indicate frustration.
disappointed with his lack of effort. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I can only think of one other time you had a wild predator straight up offering food to a person, and it was killer whales. And
Right.
most orcas have a history of hunting alongside people. We're not talking about a trained animal or one habituated to humans. We're talking about a wild predator going out of its way to provide for a person. That's not normal. Seals are the mermaids of bears. Imagine a polar bear door dashing your dinner. That's not even the only thing leopard seals and orcas have in common. Leopard seals are much smarter than the penguin media wants you to believe. Leopard seal handling manuals go out of their way to say they're smart enough to be trained, but intelligent enough to be stubborn, and they're prone to pout and act difficult like children. At the same time, they also say that ignoring a difficult
That's crazy. So that's the thing, like children being able to pout and all that stuff, I assume that would be like an intelligence related thing. So which would mean that these leopard seals are intelligent enough to be as smart as like a toddler or something.
is a pretty solid way to get them to cooperate. Leopard seals aren't just highly intelligent, they're deeply emotional creatures too. Nora was a leopard seal that made news because it was the first time scientists watched a modern day mosasaur mourn. Nora had a pup that tragically passed away, and in grieving, Nora would stay with her lost child for over 20 days. Nora didn't
Another sign of incredible intelligence, because yeah, orcas I think have been documented doing the same thing, and orcas are hyper intelligent. So just by that comparison, you don't even have to measure the leopard seals' intelligence in the lab. You could already start making comparisons to other known hyper intelligent animals.
just watch over her child. She'd move the body across the ice, carried it in her jaws, and even got aggressive whenever people would get too close to them. It wouldn't even be the only time, as in 2021, 23, and 24, scientists documented the same mother doing the same thing with 3 different pups, which is a different kind of tragic. And again, the last time I can remember hearing
Yeah.
something like this, it was when Orca J35
Exactly.
or also grieved the death of her calf and couldn't let go. That's the problem with sea leopards being so understudied, because then you miss stuff like this. And that's not even mentioning arguably the most interesting thing about them. Leopard seals sing. Males will sing these beautifully haunting songs, and females in heat will respond with a song of their own. And if you haven't seen it, it's like an underwater opera or ballet from an animal that looks like a dinosaur. It's not just
Interesting.
beautiful. Scientists actually studying these seal songs found that these songs are sequenced and structured a lot like human nursery rhymes. Nursery rhymes. This guy. I really feel like leopard seals would have way better PR if they could actually survive in zoos. They're one of those animals that just don't work in captivity. They're like the great white sharks of mammals. Few leopard seals have ever been held in zoos, and the most famous case was in Sydney's Taronga. You know what I think about at night sometimes? Sometimes I think about Casey.
I mean, that's the thing. Well, that's the thing. Like zoos and aquariums are good for harboring endangered species, especially. The problem is not every species is suited to be compatible with a enclosed space, and of course not. And when I say not every species, I don't mean like there are animals that adapt perfectly to it, because like basically every animal will struggle with captivity. But what I'm getting at is like they cannot even survive really, because Casual Geographic did talk about like zoocosis or whatever, where like zoo animals, seem to be mentally ill from the lack of wild engagement. Um, so obviously that's a concern that every zoo animal requires. This is simply like you can't have certain animals in a zoo because they just will not be able to really survive in it. Like a great white shark, it's a roaming fish. It needs to be in the ocean because in an aquarium it would just bump into the wall until it, dies or something because from all the head butting. But so like that's what I mean. That's what I'm getting at is like certain animals just by the very nature of them interacting with the zoo just cannot survive rather than the mental well-being of them, which is a whole separate issue.
Casey was a male leopard seal, believed to be the only male ever kept in captivity. He was found as a pup, abandoned on a beach in Guatemala, injured, emaciated, and with shark bites. Casey was
Okay, that's honestly the probably the best attempt. You're not taking it out of the wild as like an adult that's already accustomed. You can hopefully acclimate it to like a captive space, and it's done more or less morally because it's already abandoned and all that.
brought to Taronga for treatment in 2007, where he joined female Brooke, who was rescued in 1999, and another female, Sabine, who got there a month before Casey. Now, I can already read the anti-zoo comments, so it's important to say that these seals could never be released back into the wild.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like I said, there are obviously some animals that just cannot even live in zoos, much less thrive in them. And again, there are moral uses for zoos, like harboring endangered species and keeping them protected from threats that will wipe them out. Even if the wild population goes extinct, you still have a backup, um, like Garden of Eden kind of thing, arc, you know, to like hopefully get a stable population to release in the wild. Meanwhile, you can still have like a captive population in case that wild population goes extinct again. But so yeah, there are definitely, in my opinion, moral applications for zoos and aquariums.
Were harboring any possible diseases, it wrecked the already fragile wild population. So Taronga kept them to look after and even possibly use as ambassadors. Because again, leopard seals can always use the PR. And as Casey matured,
This also does help with research because if you really can't dive in Antarctica, even to this day, to study them, you have to find other methods. And even in captivity, they're going to act pretty instinctually.
That he could help breed the first ever leopard seal in captivity. But since Brooke died of an illness not long after Casey showed up, it'd have to be him and Sabine. There was just one big problem. Male leopard seals sing for females, and as a seal found as a pup, Casey never learned his song. Taronga staff would play the recordings of adult leopard seal songs in hopes that Casey would find his. They even played saxophone for him. I'm not exactly sure why, but Casey wasn't above it. He genuinely seemed interested, so if he likes it, I love it. Tragically, Sabine would also be lost to an illness before Casey had the chance to court her. And as Casey finally did learn his song, he also died in 2014 after struggling with a prolonged sickness and mercifully being euthanized. That's how Casey's story ended. The last captive leopard seal ever. So at this point, I think you can see that leopard
very
seals
hard
so
to deal with. Now, like I said, if there are ever more abandoned leopard seals to be put into captivity, obviously get a chance, but even then it does seem like leopard seals do have very much struggle in captivity, like health wise, even like ignoring the mental stress that every animal deals with being captive. But yeah,
they've been lambasted and typecasted for as long as we've known about them, and demonized to hell. And you might ask, is that not what I was doing in the first half of this video? And honestly, I've been wanting to talk about that for a while. Skip to here if you don't want to hear the yap, but the biggest criticism I hear about myself is that I demonize animals, I spread misinformation to demonize them, and a direct consequence on the conservation of those animals.
I'd say he tells it like it is, because at the end of the day, there is no morality in the animal kingdom. Morality is purely a human construct. We can't apply human morality to the wilderness. Even with humans that are more tribal, like at the end of the day, more tribal people are still living in a more instinctual habitat, you know. So even in that case, you can't apply human morality in the same way you can to a person who's grown that lived their whole lives in uh an urban civilization. But and this goes back and this goes to I remember there was this video of this woman trying to break up two ducks in a park breeding because she's like, get away from her, she doesn't consent or anything. And it's like, yeah, these constructs are human in nature, being I've seen things where it was like, oh, we want to stop unwanted pregnancies in dogs, so spay and neuter your dogs. And I'm not here to say don't do that, but it's like you have but there's this understanding that the whole unwanted pregnancy thing is a human construct, because in nature you basically have two jobs: feed yourself and breed. There is no concept of an unwanted pregnancy in the wild, and and animals that aren't as sentient as humans, like dogs, really can't grasp the idea of not wanting a child. So it's like we do impose our will onto other wild animals to or even domestic animals, even to a degree, if not a lot. uh so yeah, I mean, a little rant right there, but that's my opinion on the matter. And I'm not saying we don't have the right to. We are the most dominant animal to ever exist, so I guess we kind of have that going for us. But whatever.
and not a positive one. And honestly, whenever I would see that about myself, I get I'm not gonna lie, I get defensive and kind of hurt because I feel like I'm always saying you can't moral scale an animal, that you can't.
Yeah, that's the thing. He's saying you can't do that. You can't. There's no concept of morality in the animal kingdom. When he says a dolphin plays with its food, an orca will slap a stingray just for the fun of it. He's not trying to be like, oh yeah, this animal is acting immorally, because morality doesn't exist in the wild. Uh, you know, like and like I said, even humans 10,000 years ago that drove animals to extinction, they weren't doing that out of immoral means. They were just trying to survive like the rest of the animals around them. And it just so happened they were good at it. Neolithic humans weren't actively trying to hunt animals to extinction. They just didn't understand the consequences of the amount of hunting they were doing. So you can't really look at it in the same way as a modern human, even. So yeah, even humans, I wouldn't blame for a lot of extinctions in the same way I would like a modern human. Like I wouldn't be like, oh yeah, 10,000 years ago, the people who drove mammoths to extinction, they did that completely on purpose. No, they were just hunting mammoths like any other predator might attempt, and they just happened to be good at it while mammoths couldn't adapt to it. That's it was a much more natural extinction event than modern humans are known for, in my opinion. Um, because again, because those humans just didn't understand the reality of the situation, that they were taking a limited resource and driving it to extinction like we do today.
Can't judge or you can't put a morality microscope on a wild animal. A zebra that has to weave crocs, cats, and a predatory laugh track don't give two stripes about being a good person. And I
Right.
feel like I try to make the separation between, these are the facts that I find interesting, and this is the casual comedic characterization of those animals.
Right.
But yeah,
Yeah,
some corners
exactly.
of Twitter do not like me, especially with the dolphin thing. And I don't even have Twitter. I really just wish more people actually watch this video all the way through, or at least at the 940 mark, because I feel like I touch on a lot of things
940.
folks criticize me for. Also, just to defend myself a little
Right.
bit, I will take accountability, but the whole internet dolphin hate thread was a thing long before me. That didn't start with me. Some of y'all are giving me way too much power by saying I single-handedly did that. I've always said that the
Probably.
facts, as far as I'm concerned, are true, and if they're not and I get something wrong, I feel like over the years I've shown that I have no
Yeah.
problem coming out and correcting it. At the same time, if I call something
That's
like a
corrected
Water
things.
Weinstein or a C Cosby, that doesn't mean I actually like you gotta know that I don't actually think dolphins should be persecuted to the full extent of the law. But
Prosecuted, but yeah. Oh, correcting himself, persecuted, prosecuted. Yeah, I mean, it's just like a light-hearted kind of joke comparison. Like they act in a way that these people have acted, but the difference is these people are humans with that can form a mental or moral compass. Dolphins aren't. You know, you know, bears and zebras and all these animals don't have the luxury of forming a moral compass, even if they are technically smart enough to, because at the end of the day, their mind is set on survival, not what is right for the world.
I can
And that's why I don't blame early humans for driving animals to extinction, is because at one point we were in that boat, just trying to survive till the next day. So, like, early extinction events caused by humans, I'm like, we we were only so responsible, I guess you could say. As in, yeah, we drove them to extinction, but we were just on the same exact survival mode as every other animal at the time, and just trying to hold out with domestication. That obviously changed things because now we could just breed animals into plentiful amounts and live off them, and we didn't have to be so concerned with hunting wild animals. And then the risk of those wild animals going extinct was a lot less. It was much more reduced, as that took as like beef took strain off of hunting deer. Even if we did hunt deer occasionally, still.
understand the other side. Because, like, imagine you're a scientist or a marine biologist, and every time you log online, you see people saying dolphins are evil, dolphins deserve to die, all dolphins are piss, and for every like 10 people that say that, maybe 3 or 4 link one of my videos. Replay that interaction enough times, and of course, eventually you would just think, oh yeah, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about, fear-mongering mother. So that's why the last couple of years, I don't know if y'all have noticed, but I've tried to be more.
I would imagine it's like an out of context clip, but it's like, yeah, if you actually watch the full videos, he does try to be like, these are just animals living in nature, and they're just dealing with living in nature as you do.
With the way I frame these videos. I'm still gonna get my jokes off. That's just how I talk. I'm pretty sure I call this an Ice Cube missile crisis. But that's why I've been wanting to say this, specifically in this video. I've always been fascinated by leopard seals, especially the aspects that make them dangerous. In fact, whenever I'm emphasizing how dangerous an animal is, it's coming from a place of admiration. At the same time, they already get demonized crazy, so you do have to be careful with how you walk that line. Ultimately, I think there's a middle ground where you can be entertaining enough to be an entry point for people to be interested in
Yeah,
zoology, while also being fair to the animal. And I think it's
exactly.
also fair to ask for a little bit of grace whenever I'm calling something like a threat to humanity. But y'all say it again. Dolphins, chimps, hippos, otters, sea leopards, and
Oh, yeah,
all
chimp's
others
big
aren't
thing.
evil. They're just animals trying to make it to the next day without the human privilege of morality. But that's gonna do it for this video.
Exactly. And again, morality is a privilege. Morality is a privilege you you have when you form an abundant society. Like I said, for a long time, humans didn't have the advantage of morality because they didn't have the advantage of having theoretically endless domestic animals to eat. They didn't have, domestic crops to eat and the protection of city walls for the longest time. At some point, we were just another wild animal trying to survive. And we're not anymore, but at some point we were. And once we became a more abundant species, we were able to implant morality because we didn't have to be so concerned with day-to-day survival like every other animal has to.
Water, hug your mother, don't touch sea.
And also we have the self-awareness to be able to form morality. Like a domestic dog is not going to be able to form morality. They don't have the self-awareness, even though they do have the benefit of daily food guaranteed, hopefully. um like a domestic dog will still eat food like he's never going to eat it again, like when you feed him, because again, he's not self-aware enough to even realize that this is food's being provided in abundance. Humans at least are, so we're able to form morality because of that.
And I'm gonna see y'all in the next one.
Playing the sax and Rip Casey, rip the man. Rip the man. Okay. Let's see. Yeah, that's good video.